The screeching started long before the train arrived. Alex had just stepped onto the platform, dragging his briefcase and the exhaustion of a 12-hour day behind him. The subway station was empty, silent except for the faint hum of fluorescent lights overhead. He frowned. The last train should have been packed with tired commuters, yet here there was nothing. No one, not a soul. A chill ran down his spine as he noticed movement at the edge of his vision. Shadows flickered along the tiled walls, slipping away whenever he looked directly. A distant echo, like someone screaming far down the tunnels, made him stop mid-step. The sound ended abruptly, leaving only the whine of the station's ventilation system, probably just some kids messing around, he told himself. But the tightness in his chest didn't ease. The train rolled in, metal grinding against the tracks in a way that made his teeth ache. Doors slid open with a hiss, empty. Every seat vacant, not a single passenger. The lights inside flickered, casting the interior in a sickly yellow glow. He stepped forward, hesitating. "Hello?" His voice sounded small, swallowed by the cavernous car. No reply. Just a soft, almost imperceptible whisper at the far end. "Don't look back." Alex froze. The doors closed behind him with a solid thud. The train lurched forward, faster than it should. He clutched the pole, glancing toward the windows. The tunnel was dark, too dark. The only illumination the occasional flicker of failing lights. Every few seconds he thought he saw faces pressed against the glass. He blinked. Gone. A seat across the car tilted slightly as if someone had just left. But no one was there. "I'm just tired." "I'm imagining things," Alex murmured, forcing himself to breathe, and then he heard it. Faint at first. A whisper threading through the hum of the train. "We've been waiting for you." His stomach churned. He turned toward the end of the car, trying to locate the source. Nothing, only darkness. Minutes passed, but the train didn't stop. No station signs, no familiar announcements, only tunnels stretching endlessly into blackness. Alex's phone was dead. No signal, no light. He sat, heart hammering. The whispers grew, overlapping, a chorus of voices murmuring his name, repeating his thoughts before he thought them. The cold seeped into his bones, numbing his fingers and toes. Then movement. At the far end, something shifting in the shadows. A hand, pale and thin, pressed against the wall. Slowly, deliberately, it slid along the window, leaving streaks like fingerprints on glass. Alex wanted to run, to reach the door, but his legs felt rooted to the floor. The air around him thickened, heavy with the scent of damp concrete and decay. He stumbled backward, catching the pole, his knuckles white. "No, no, no," he whispered. But even as he tried to will himself awake from what he hoped was a nightmare, the train seemed alive. It groaned, its metal ribs creaking, twisting subtly, subtly. "It won't stop," a voice whispered right next to him. He spun, no one there. Just the empty seats, the darkness pooling beneath the flickering lights. A flash of movement at the window made him jump. Faces, dozens of faces pressed flat against the glass, mouths opening silently in perpetual screams. Their eyes were hollow, black, yet somehow they stared straight at him. Alex stumbled, heart racing. His mind raced through rational explanations, holograms, reflections, a prank. But the air thickened, pressing down on him, closing in. Every instinct screamed to leave, to escape. But the doors were locked, sealed. "Don't scream," another whisper hissed. It hears, the walls seemed to pulse. The lights overhead flickered violently. Shadows coalesced, forming shapes, crawling along the floor and climbing the seats. He was no longer on a train. He was inside a living nightmare, a metal coffin hurtling through darkness with a chorus of lost souls. He ran to the door, pounding, yanking at the handles. Nothing. The glass was unyielding, the metal cold as ice. Behind him, a shadow stretched across the aisle, growing, consuming the floor, walls, even the flickering lights above. It moved toward him with purpose, a tide of darkness. "You can't leave," the chorus of whispers chanted in unison. "Never leave," Alex screamed. The sound echoed, bouncing off the windows and walls, swallowed almost immediately by the oppressive darkness. He felt hands, too many, cold and skeletal, brush against his arms, his shoulders, his neck. He spun, clawing, but grasped nothing. The train's motion changed. Faster now, more violent. The lights overhead blinked one last time and went out entirely. Absolute black. Only the whispers remained, circling him, pressing into his skull. And then he heard it. A scream. Not far, not behind, but inside him. A sound that was his own, twisted and alien. The door shuddered, rattling as if mocking his struggle. Please. Let me off. Nothing answered. Nothing ever would. The train finally slowed, a grinding halt that rattled every bone in his body. The doors opened, and the platform was empty. Silent. No lights, no shadows, only cold gray tiles stretching endlessly. Alex stumbled forward, collapsing onto the platform. The station was deserted, lifeless. He turned, searching for any sign of the train, but it had vanished. Then he noticed the newspaper lying on the floor, edges curled. He picked it up with shaking hands. A headline screamed, "Subway passengers vanish without a trace. Last seen on midnight train." His heart seized. And beneath the headline, a photograph caught his eye. A man in a suit, briefcase in hand, frozen in mid-step. A familiar face. His own. Alex dropped the paper. He heard the faintest hiss behind him, the sliding of train doors, metal grinding against the tracks. A whisper echoed in the cavernous station, cold and certain. Don't look back. He didn't, but in the corner of his vision, he saw them. Faces pressed against windows, mouths opening in silent, eternal screams. The last train had claimed another passenger, and the platform was empty again. The station appeared without warning. Lily had been on the last train home after a 12-hour night shift, eyes heavy with fatigue, mind half drifting into sleep. The lights flickered intermittently, casting everything in sickly, jaundiced hues, and then the train jolted. Ashwood. The station name blinked across the signboard. But Lily frowned. Ashwood wasn't on the line, not even close. Every station had a map, a schedule, a timetable. This one had none. She pressed her forehead against the window, hoping she'd misread it. When the train hissed to a stop, the doors opened to an empty platform. Walls slick with damp, tiles cracked and warped. The smell hit her first. Damp soil, something rotting just beneath it, and a hint of iron that made her stomach twist. She stepped cautiously onto the platform. The train slid away silently, leaving her alone. No, this isn't real," she whispered. A shadow shifted behind a pillar. She spun. No one. Only torn posters clung to walls like ragged teeth. "Leave before midnight." A low voice carried from the shadows, barely audible. "They take those who linger." Lily froze. Her pulse thrummed in her ears. The platform stretched endlessly, the tunnel entrance ahead disappearing into black. Somewhere a clock ticked, though she hadn't seen one. Tick, tick, tick. She wandered along the platform, calling out for anyone, anything. The echo of her voice returned altered, as if another person was mimicking her words just behind her. Each step felt heavier, the tiles giving beneath her feet like they wanted to swallow her. The air felt alive, oppressive. She glanced at the walls. Shadows moved without source, elongating, slinking toward her with intent. She remembered the whisper. "They take those who linger." A movement in the corner of her eye. A figure crouched by a rusted bench. Lily's voice trembled. "Hello?" The figure didn't respond, but raised a hand. Pale, twisted, fingers long, bent. Then it vanished. Panic clutched at her throat. She ran toward the tunnel exit. Each step seemed to stretch, distance growing impossibly long. The shadows behind her multiplied, whispering in a chorus of voices, repeating her thoughts, her fears. The stories came back to her. Urban legends whispered among late-night commuters. Ashwood Station, a place that appeared once every full moon where passengers vanished. People who stopped here never returned. Train records erased. Memories of the station lost to those who escaped if they were lucky. Her heart thudded violently. I have to leave. But the exit was gone. The tunnel stretched endlessly. Her flashlight flickered and died. Darkness enveloped her. She screamed, hoping for a response, but only the soft, mocking laughter of the station returned. From somewhere in the void, a voice whispered, "You shouldn't have stopped here." Lily ran blindly, hands scraping against damp concrete walls, her breath echoing, mixing with the hum of hidden machinery. Stairways appeared and vanished, tunnels looped impossibly, every direction the same. The platform behind her was empty, but shadows danced at the edge of vision, stretching like black fingers reaching to drag her back. Time became meaningless. She remembered past passengers, vanished commuters, left behind notices warning of the station, their screams swallowed by the walls. And now she understood. Ashwood didn't just trap people. It waited, it hungry, it measured patience, greed, and fear. And she had lingered too long. Her legs gave out. She collapsed on the tiles. Cold seeped through her clothes, chilling her bones. The shadows loomed closer, moving with intent, as though the darkness itself was alive. "You can't leave," it whispered again, closer, right at her ear. "Not yet." Lily's head snapped up. A figure emerged from the gloom. Featureless yet human-shaped, standing perfectly still. It tilted its head, examining her. She wanted to scream, but the sound lodged in her throat. "I need to move. I need to move!" The figure stepped closer. Every instinct screamed to run, but the platform had changed. Doors appeared along the walls, staircases descended into infinite black, yet she couldn't find the exit. She was trapped in a labyrinth that had no start or end. Hours, or maybe minutes, passed. She stumbled into a small alcove, trying to catch her breath. Her flashlight flickered back on, just long enough to reveal a mirror. She froze. Her reflection smiled. It wasn't her. The shadow figure loomed behind her. The reflection whispered, "Next time you'll stay." Lily spun, but the mirror showed only empty tiles behind her. Panic boiled over. She ran again, breath ragged, feeling the walls close in, shadows following, muttering, ever present. Every corridor, every platform seemed alive, waiting for her to falter. She came to a stop at a row of benches. Faded flyers lay scattered, missing person notices. The newest one bore her photograph. Her name printed in bold, official letters. She staggered backward, the floor beneath her trembling. The shadow figure appeared again, this time in the reflection of the platform glass. Its face blurred, shifting between every missing commuter she'd ever heard about. They stared at her with hollow eyes. "Stop, please," she whispered, voice barely audible. The whispers responded, "You stopped. Now you belong." The train arrived silently. Not the one she had taken. Another, larger, blacker, doors yawning wide as if inviting her in. The figure gestured, hesitated, then stepped aside. The station hummed, pulsing like a living heartbeat. Lily knew, instinctively, she had no choice. The station had waited, and now it had claimed her attention. She stepped onto the train. The doors closed behind her, and the lights in the station flickered one last time before going out. Ashwood Station disappeared, as it always did, leaving nothing but silence. And somewhere in the dark, another whisper waited. "Next time, it will be you." The train arrived quietly, almost too quietly. Mark had just boarded the last car of the midnight line, tired from the late shift at the hospital. The fluorescent lights flickered, casting long, wavering shadows across the empty seats. The conductor's booth at the front was dark. No face visible, no movement, just a rigid silhouette, unnervingly still. Mark eased himself onto a seat, glancing at the conductor. "Excuse me?" he asked, voice tight, but the figure didn't respond. Not a word. A chill slid down his spine. The train lurched forward. The stations blurred past the windows, too fast, or maybe too wrong, names he didn't recognize. Some didn't exist. He leaned closer to the booth, squinting. The figure's hands rested on the controls, pale and still, fingers long, jointed like brittle sticks. The silhouette didn't move, didn't blink, didn't acknowledge him. This isn't normal, Mark thought. Gripping the edge of the seat, a whisper came from the back of the car. Low, guttural, almost beneath perception. "He knows your name." Mark froze. The sound didn't come from the conductor. It came from everywhere. The walls, the floor, the air itself. He turned, but the car was empty. The train passed station after station, all unrecognizable. Mark noticed the advertisements flicker, images twisting into faces he didn't know. Screaming faces pressed flat, mouths moving soundlessly. He blinked. The images returned to normal. A passenger appeared across the aisle. Old, hunched, eyes wide and fearful. The man whispered, Don't look at him." Mark swallowed hard. "Look at who?" The old man's gaze flicked to the booth. "He collects them. The ones who ride too long. The ones who see." Before Mark could ask more, the man's body stiffened, eyes locked forward, mouth opening in a silent scream. Then, like a candle blown out, he vanished. Mark's heart pounded. The doors stayed shut. The windows reflected nothing outside, only darkness, stretching endlessly, unbroken. I have to get off, he thought, pacing the aisle. But no door handle worked. The metal was ice-cold, unyielding. The train groaned, metal twisting subtly, impossibly. Shadows crawled along the floor, stretching up seats, slithering across the ceiling. Whispers swirled around him, repeating his thoughts. You can't leave. He knows your name. You're next. The conductor finally moved. Slowly, deliberately, hands shifting on the controls. No sound, no words. But the air changed, heavier, thicker. Mark could feel the train responding. Walls stretching, the ceiling lowering, the floor pulsing like a heartbeat. A sudden loud whisper cut through the darkness. It's your turn. Mark spun. The car seemed alive. The seats warped, reflections on the windows showing not him, but dozens of hollow-eyed faces staring directly at him. He bolted to the door. The handle didn't budge. He felt a presence behind him. Something cold, skeletal, brushing along his back. The shadows coalesced into figures, all previous passengers, their faces twisted in silent screams, eyes dark, mouths moving in mimicry of his panicked breaths. Stop, he yelled, but the figures ignored him. They advanced, floating just above the floor, hands reaching, grasping, pulling. The train twisted violently. The walls stretched outward, then snapped back in impossible geometry. Stations disappeared. Time dissolved. Mark couldn't tell if minutes or hours passed, only the constant, suffocating dread pressing into his chest. The conductor remained silent, always still, observing. Mark realized it wasn't just collecting passengers. It was watching them unravel, letting the terror build to a breaking point. Another whisper, now directly in his ear, hissed, "Don't scream." It hears. Mark could feel his own voice twist inside him, elongate, echo. The shadows multiplied, filling the aisle, creeping along the ceiling, coiling around his legs. He fell to his knees, sobbing, trying to claw his way to the door. I'm going insane, he thought. This isn't real, but it was. Time distorted further. The car seemed to stretch endlessly, seats appearing and vanishing, reflections multiplying in windows and on the floor. The shadows of past passengers pressed forward, hollow eyes fixed on him, their silent screams filling the space. Mark's vision tunneled. He saw the conductor step forward. Only then did he notice the face was everything, yet nothing. A blur of missing passengers, countless souls merged into one. Mouths moved, words forming in unison, fare collected. Next! The shadows surged, engulfing him. His screams were swallowed by the darkness. The train twisted, walls folding over him, a metal coffin in motion. When the train finally rolled into the station, it was empty. Silent. The doors slid open. No conductor, no passengers, no Mark. Only a brief reflection in the window, a twisted face, a grin that wasn't his. Somewhere, a faint whisper lingered. Next time, it will be you. The lights in the station flickered, then returned to normal. A janitor swept the empty platform, unaware. Yet in the reflection of the glass doors, the silhouette of a train sat just beyond the tracks, waiting. Always waiting. Footsteps echoed before Mia even saw anyone. She was taking the service tunnel shortcut from the last station to her apartment, a shortcut she'd used dozens of times. Normally, the tunnel smelled faintly of damp concrete and oil. Tonight it was different, heavier, metallic, almost alive. The echoes didn't match her steps. They were faster, lighter, coming from behind her, though no one followed. She froze, her flashlight shaking in her hand. Hello? Her voice bounced off the concrete walls, but the echo came back. Different. Not her own. Mia's pulse quickened. The tunnel stretched endlessly ahead, yet shadows pooled in impossible corners. She remembered the rumors. Abandoned tunnels built decades ago, accidents unreported, workers disappearing without a trace. Another step, echoing, mocking. She ran. Her boots pounded the concrete, but the tunnel twisted around her, lengthening unnaturally. The walls seemed to breathe, contracting and stretching, forcing her to stumble, clawing at the floor for balance. Mia paused at a junction, panting, flashlight flickering. Every surface reflected movement. Shadows stretching along the walls, slithering across the floor. She blinked. The shadows mimicked her movements, then broke formation, advancing independently. "Get out. Just get out," she muttered, voice trembling. A whisper rippled through the tunnel. "You can't escape what's already inside." Mia spun. The tunnel was empty. Only darkness stretched into infinity. Her mind raced. She must be imagining things. Exhaustion, fear, anything. But the echoes persisted. Softly at first, then louder, multiplying. Steps mirrored her own, but not in sync. Whispers repeated her thoughts, mocking her panic, her desperation. Flashbacks surfaced, stories of the tunnel's past. A burial ground beneath the city. Long-forgotten accidents. Workers trapped between walls. Tunnels sealed over and erased from maps. A low voice called her name, distant, echoing, yet unmistakable. "Mia!" She stumbled forward, hands scraping the damp walls, flashlight beam wobbling across cracked concrete. Rats frozen mid-motion, eyes glinting like black mirrors. Her heartbeat thundered. "I'm alone. I'm alone. I'm alone." The tunnel seemed to pulse with each breath, each beat of her heart. The echoes grew more insistent, whispering threats she didn't yet understand. The walls themselves seemed to stretch, folding space impossibly, looping endlessly. She reached a small alcove, a break in the tunnel where a rusted maintenance ladder led up to a platform. Relief surged through her. She climbed, then froze. Reflected in a puddle at her feet was her own face, but not exactly her own. Hollow eyes stared back, wide with terror, lips curved into a silent scream. Behind her in the puddle, shadows moved, elongating and twisting toward her. Mia's flashlight flickered violently. The echo of her scream returned altered, distorted as if another person's panic had merged with hers. She dropped the flashlight, but the shadows didn't pause. "The echoes are coming for you." The words seemed to grow from the walls themselves. She spun, trying to flee, but the tunnel had changed. Corridors looped back impossibly, walls sliding and bending. Every exit led deeper into darkness. Her breathing became ragged, each inhale matched by a whispering echo of her fear. "You can't leave. You can't leave." She ran blindly, arms outstretched, feeling the walls close in. Shadows reached for her. Long, skeletal, twisting fingers that didn't exist yet moved, brushing her clothing, scraping at her skin. The floor beneath her vibrated, almost like a heartbeat. Suddenly, the echoes stopped. Silence pressed down, thick and absolute. She crouched, hands over her ears, shaking violently. A faint sound, barely more than a murmur, rose from the darkness. "We've been waiting for you." Her flashlight flickered back on just long enough to reveal dozens of her own reflections in the tunnel walls. Each one was screaming silently, eyes wide, identical in every detail. They advanced toward her, moving independently of her own motions. Mia ran, but the tunnel looped again. Her boots splashed in puddles of water that reflected faces, not ceilings. She could see herself, but only half. The rest of her body replaced by shadow, by countless echoes of others who had vanished before her. The air thickened. Breath caught in her throat. She could no longer tell if she was moving forward or backward. The shadows whispered constantly, surrounding her, pressing against her mind, erasing her sense of self. A single thought emerged. "I have to stop running, or I'll disappear." Mia fell to her knees, shaking. The tunnel pulsed around her. She heard them now, hundreds, maybe thousands, the echoes of all the lost, all the trapped, all the vanished. They whispered in unison, her name and every fear she had ever held. "You belong here. You can't leave." She felt a hand on her shoulder, cold, skeletal. She screamed. The shadows surged, enveloping her completely. Her reflection split, multiplied, the countless screams of the trapped merging with hers. When the subway authorities later found the tunnel, they found only a flashlight lying in a puddle. The floor was wet, the walls silent. No footprints, no sound, no sign of Mia. Somewhere deep beneath the city, the echoes still waited. They whispered in the dark, searching for the next soul, the next intruder into the tunnels that never forgot, never forgave, and Mia's voice joined the chorus. The ticket machine beeped before James even touched it. He had boarded the last train, exhausted, mind foggy from overtime at the office. The subway car was nearly empty, just a few scattered passengers, hunched in their seats, silent. He approached the machine to check his fare. The screen flickered, printing a single ticket. Oddly, it didn't display a station. Just his name, James Porter, a midnight fare. He blinked. That's not right. A low chuckle echoed across the empty car. James spun. No one looked at him. Only the shadows clinging to the corners of the seats seemed to shift, stretching unnaturally. A man in the seat across from him whispered, "Pay or stay forever." James frowned. "Excuse me?" The man didn't answer. His eyes widened, fixed, unblinking, and then he vanished. The train jolted. Outside the window, stations flickered, some familiar, some impossible. Names like Ashwood and Crescent Hollow glowed briefly on dim signs before disappearing. James gripped the overhead pole, heart hammering. He glanced around. The few passengers remaining seemed wrong. Their reflections in the windows didn't match their movements. Some faces twisted, mouths opening silently in eternal screams. A whisper slithered through the air. No exceptions. James froze. The air grew heavy, as though the car itself were alive, pressing against him. Shadows pooled on the floor, creeping along the seats. Every instinct screamed to leave, but the doors refused to open. He glanced at the conductor booth. Empty. No silhouette. Just darkness. This isn't real. He tried to call out, but his voice twisted, bouncing back distorted, mingling with whispers he didn't recognize. He stumbled to the ticket machine, holding the printed fare in trembling hands. The screen flickered again. Next fare, you. The machine shuddered. A shadow coalesced behind him. Skeletal fingers brushed the edge of his shoulder. He whirled. Empty aisle. Only the faint hum of the train and the scraping whisper of shadows along the walls. The whispers multiplied, voices overlapping, repeating every fear he had ever felt. You can't leave. You belong. Fare collected. Suddenly, the train plunged into darkness. The lights died. The air thickened, every breath burning his lungs. The passengers, the few still remaining, became shadows, their bodies twisting, stretching, merging with the blackness. James realized the truth. This was no ordinary train. It wasn't just collecting fares. It was collecting souls, and tonight, he was next. A whisper hissed directly into his ear. Your turn, sir. The shadows surged, pressing against him, crawling up the walls, pooling on the floor. He screamed. His reflection in the window stared back at him, only it wasn't him. Hollow eyes, a gaping mouth, and countless tiny faces pressing against the glass. Mouths opening in silent terror. The train twisted, walls folding and stretching impossibly. The air vibrating with screams, his own, multiplied. Merging with the chorus of past victims. Time collapsed. Stations flashed impossibly fast. Ashwood. Crescent Hollow. All the lost stations, all the vanished passengers, all the shadows converged. The floor beneath him trembled, the seats warped. Reflections multiplied until he could no longer discern himself from the void. He lunged for the door. Metal refused. He pounded, screamed, clawed at the unyielding surface. Shadows grasped at him, pulling, coiling, dragging. The air filled with whispers, fare collected. Next, he fell to the floor, consumed by darkness. His own scream echoed, distorted, a chorus of the lost, joining the eternal procession of the midnight fare. The train eventually rolled into a normal station. The doors slid open, empty. The ticket machine spat out a single slip of paper. The fare read, next, passenger unknown. Somewhere in the shadows of the subway, James Porter's voice joined the whispers. The midnight train waited. Always waiting, and the fare never ended.